Okay, let's unpack this. I was walking the other day and I practically tripped over the most incredible sight, these serviceberry bushes nearby, just absolutely loaded.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, way more fruit than one family could possibly eat. And it just struck me as this like unexpected, freely given abundance.
Hmm.
And that little encounter, it really got me thinking about something bigger, which is exactly what we're diving into today.
That's fascinating because that everyday experience, it perfectly sets the stage for what we're going to explore here.
Right.
We're taking a deep dive into this concept of gift economies, and we're drawing particularly from Robin Wall Kimmerer's writing in The Serviceberry.
Such beautiful writing.
Isn't it? And looking at how these economies, well, how they contrast with the market systems we're also used to.
Exactly. So our exploration is really fueled by Kimmerer's way of weaving her personal stories about these berries with her deep understanding of the natural world, especially the serviceberry itself.
And we'll also be looking at indigenous perspectives, right? Specifically Potawatomi and Anishinaabe traditions.
Yeah, and even touching on how these ideas sort of connect or clash with broader economic thinking.
So our goal today, really, is to get to the heart of what a gift economy actually is all about. We want to understand why it might be relevant now and how it fundamentally differs from the market economy we live in.
And ultimately, we're asking if there's a way to maybe shift our perspective, maybe move from focusing on what's lacking, scarcity.
Appreciating abundance.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the power of, giving back.
Reciprocity.
And it all starts with the serviceberry. Kimmerer describes finding this surprising bounty of Saskatoon berries. They're a western cousin to the local serviceberries.
Great Saskatoon.
Planted by her neighbors. And she mentions how the native ones can sometimes be a bit scarce, while these Saskatoons were just overflowing. Her delight just jumps off the page. And that contrast immediately brings something important up, doesn't it? This sheer volume of berries. It felt like a gift, just freely available, no expectation of payment.
Totally.
What's also interesting is just how many names this plant, the Amelanchier genus, actually has. Saskatoon, Juneberry, Shadbush.
So many names.
Right. Ethnobotanists often say the more names a plant has in a culture, the more significant it probably is.
Absolutely. And it wasn't just about food either, the serviceberry or shadbush. It also works like a natural calendar.
How so?
Well, its early blossoms are a really reliable sign that the ground has thawed, which, historically, that was crucial information.
Okay.
It told circuit riders mountain passes might be open, and really importantly for communities, it signaled that the shad were starting their run upstream. Time to fish.
That connection to the natural rhythms, the seasons, it's so central to many indigenous cultures, isn't it? Their lives were often structured around following that availability of food, celebrating the abundance when it arrived, rather than trying to force production out of season.
Which is exactly what our modern food systems often do, right? With huge environmental costs.
Exactly.
Kimmerer, being Potawatomi herself, brings such a valuable perspective here. The Potawatomi name for serviceberry is Bozakman.
Bozakman.
Yeah, and she translates it beautifully as the best of the berries. But here's where it gets really interesting. The root word min in Bozakman, which means berry, is also the very same root word for gift in the Potawatomi language.
Wow. Okay, that's profound. Berry is gift.
Right.
And it's not just the serviceberry.
No, she points out it shows up in names for other vital plants, too. Blueberry, strawberry, even corn, wild rice.
So the language itself embeds this idea of plants as gifts.
Exactly. As the Anishinaabe linguist James Vuklich put it, these plant gifts can be seen as a manifestation of unconditional love that plants have for people, just offering what they have freely.
It really makes you, reconsider your whole relationship with what sustains you, doesn't it?
Totally.
Thinking of food from the land not as just a commodity or a resource to be exploited, but as a genuine gift.
And as Kimmerer explains, that perspective naturally brings with it a set of responsibilities.
Responsibilities like what?
Well, the responsibility to share what we receive, to treat it with respect, to give back in some way, and just to feel gratitude.
Okay, so receiving a gift isn't passive. It creates a bond, an obligation almost.
Yeah. And the Anishinaabe understanding extends this to everything the land provides: food, shelter materials, medicine, everything for life to flourish.
So when we frame these things as gifts, our entire way of interacting with the natural world has to shift.
And Kimmerer illustrates this interconnectedness so beautifully, this amazing cycle of giving within the whole ecosystem.
How does she describe that?
Well, think about it. The serviceberry tree itself exists because of countless gifts, right? The sun's energy, rain, soil nutrients from decomposed stuff, the work of pollinators.
Like those early spring flies she mentioned.
Exactly. And the birds spreading its seeds. It's all this incredible web of giving and receiving.
Which brings us neatly to what you could call the cornerstones, maybe, of a gift economy: gratitude and reciprocity.
Okay.
Now, gratitude here isn't just, saying thank you politely. It's deeper. It's recognizing how much we depend on the earth, this sense that our existence is nurtured by it.
And that recognition, she argues, cultivates a feeling of abundance.
Yeah, this understanding that we actually already have what we truly need: enoughness.
And that sense of enough, wow, that really pushes back against our consumer culture, doesn't it?
Oh,
Which is constantly telling us we need more, more, more.
Absolutely. Kimmerer points out that globally, we actually produce enough food calories to feed everyone, yet hunger persists.
Makes you wonder, what if we all just took what we needed with genuine gratitude for the gift?
It's a radical thought. And then comes reciprocity. That's the natural response when we receive a gift.
So giving back.
Right. But it's not always a direct, immediate swap like in a market. It can take many forms.
Like what, for example?
Well, directly, it might be tending to those serviceberry bushes, maybe weeding around them, or, as Kimmerer mentions, even offering a song of thanks.
A song. That's lovely.
Isn't it? And indirectly, it could be, say, supporting land trusts, advocating for conservation, or just making choices to reduce our own environmental impact. Giving back to the system that gave the gift.
So it's like gratitude and reciprocity become the currency, maybe, in this gift economy.
That's a good way to put it. And what's amazing is that this currency, it seems to multiply with each act of giving. It grows. It's a truly sustainable cycle.
Unlike money, which is finite.
Exactly. And Kimmerer emphasizes that this give back is often an open, diffuse flow, keeping the gifts circulating through the whole web of life, not just a closed loop between two parties.
Okay, to really get this, maybe it helps to draw that line clearly between gift and market economy.
Yeah, absolutely. Kimmerer uses a simple but really powerful example: getting berries.
Yep, okay.
If you buy them at a store, the interaction is purely transactional. It ends when you hand over the money. Done.
Right. No ongoing relationship implied.
But if you receive those berries as a gift, that creates an ongoing connection, a sense of responsibility maybe towards the giver and the source they came from.
Ah, okay, so the relationship is totally different.
Completely. When we see the world as a source of gifts, it seems to foster both happiness and, importantly, accountability.
How so, accountability?
Well, you're much more likely to care for something you see as a precious gift than something you just bought as a commodity, right?
Yeah, it makes sense. You treat it differently.
Kimmerer offers this thought experiment. Imagine if we truly acknowledged that everything we use, our food, water, shelter, ultimately comes as a gift from the earth. Wouldn't that fundamentally change how we treat it?
It feels like it would have to.
And this difference even shows up in our language. Think about the term natural resources.
Yeah.
It frames the natural world as just raw materials, stuff to be converted for profit. Compare that with the idea of earthly gifts.
Very different feeling. One implies taking, the other receiving.
Exactly. The words shape our understanding. Kimmerer also contrasts the conventional economic-focused scarcity, resource exploitation incentives with ecological economics.
Which is different how?
Well, ecological economics shares that root oikos, meaning home, with ecology. So it prioritizes organizing ourselves to actually sustain life and improve its quality, not just maximize profit.
Okay, thinking about the home, the system, rather than just extraction.
Right. And she shares this wonderful story, an anthropological one, about a hunter-gatherer. He had a large kill, more than he could possibly use or store himself. But instead of trying to hoard it, he shared it all immediately with his community.
Why?
His reasoning was profound. He said, "I store my meat in the belly of my brother."
Wow, so storing wealth in relationships, not in things.
Exactly. That perfectly illustrates the gift economy principle. Wealth isn't about hoarding. It's about having enough to share. And status in that system comes from your generosity, from giving away.
So the whole value system flips. It's not money, it's relationships, gratitude, interdependence, reciprocity.
Precisely. Anthropologists like Marshall Solins describe these systems where goods and services flow within a community without explicit demands for immediate return. They thrive on trust, ensuring everyone's basic needs are met.
But, okay, this isn't just some, like, ancient history or abstract theory, is it?
Not at all. Gift economy principles are actually alive and well all around us, often existing right alongside our market system.
Really? Like what?
Well, think about neighbors sharing extra zucchini from their garden. Or tomatoes.
Oh, yeah, happens all the time in the summer. Or those free boxes you sometimes see on the curb.
Exactly. Free roadside offerings. And think about times of crisis, like natural disasters.
Oh, yeah, people step up.
Don't they just? We often see this powerful surge of the gift economy in action then. People spontaneously sharing resources, offering shelter, providing mutual aid. Rebecca Solnit writes beautifully about this.
How compassion and generosity just take over sometimes.
Right, often overriding market logic when communities face shared threats.
Kimmerer also points to more modern examples, right? Like free cycling groups.
Yeah, free cycling, repair cafes where people share skills and tools, clothing swaps, the whole buy nothing movement.
Buy nothing, right. I've seen those groups online.
And even, the vast sharing of knowledge on platforms like Wikipedia or YouTube or TikTok, so much of that functions on giving and receiving without direct payment.
That's true. You don't pay per article on Wikipedia.
And things like little free libraries or even public libraries themselves, they're community-scale examples operating on shared access and contribution.
Libraries are a great example, actually, coexisting with bookstores.
Right. Kimmerer even touches on the idea of cuddly capitalism, maybe a slightly tongue-in-cheek term, in some Nordic countries.
What does she mean by that?
Well, places with higher taxes that fund robust social safety nets, public services, things for the common good. And interestingly, those countries often report higher levels of happiness.
So sharing resources through taxes leads to more well-being.
It suggests a connection, at least. But these systems, gift economies, they aren't perfect. They have vulnerabilities.
Yeah, you mentioned the story about the free farm stand?
Right. Kimmerer recounts how it was just stolen, the whole stand, which highlights the challenge of, cheaters, people who might take advantage of the trust that's essential in a gift economy.
That immediately makes me think of the tragedy of the commons.
Exactly. The classic theory that shared resources will inevitably be depleted because everyone acts in their own self-interest.
But isn't there a counter-argument to that?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
The work of Elinor Ostrom, who actually won a Nobel Prize in economics for this.
Oh, wow.
Her research showed, very convincingly, that communities can and do successfully manage shared resources sustainably. They do it through collective agreements, building trust, cooperation, often without needing privatization or top-down government control.
So the tragedy isn't inevitable. Commons can work.
They can with the right social structures. And this resonates strongly with Indigenous resource management practices.
Like the dish with one spoon treaty.
Precisely. Between the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe nations, it views the shared land as a gift, emphasizing joint responsibility for its care, and establishing protocols like the honorable harvest to ensure sustainability. Taking only what you need, using all you take, giving thanks.
Okay, let's circle back to the serviceberry itself. You mentioned its own sort of economy.
Yeah, it's a beautiful model. The tree uses freely available resources, sunlight, water, air, to create abundance.
And
then it shares that abundance generously. Its blossoms offer nectar for insects, crucial early season food. Its berries feed birds and other animals.
And those relationships are mutual, right?
Right.
The insects pollinate, the birds disperse seeds.
Exactly. It's a system of mutualism. Exchanges of goods and services within the ecosystem where everyone benefits. It's cooperation, not just competition.
It's the complete opposite of a mindset of just hoarding and self-interest, isn't it?
Totally. Kimmerer points out, if the serviceberries were somehow to act only for their own gain, hoard all their resources, the whole forest ecosystem would be diminished. Their abundance is directly linked to their giving.
That leads us to this really crucial distinction you mentioned earlier, manufactured scarcity versus natural abundance.
Right. Kimmerer talks about how market economies often thrive by creating artificial scarcity from resources that are naturally abundant.
Like bottled water.
Bottled water is the classic example, yes. Taking something essential and freely available, or that should be, and turns it into a commodity for profit, creating scarcity where none needed to exist.
Which is so different from many Indigenous views where water is sacred, a shared gift.
Exactly. Not something to be owned and sold for individual gain. And Kimmerer makes this really sobering point. This relentless pursuit of manufactured scarcity, driven by an extractive economy, can ultimately lead to real, devastating scarcity.
Scarcity of the things we actually need.
Yes, food, clean water, breathable air, the essentials, the real gifts.
She connects this to the Potawatomi idea of the Wendigo.
She does. The Wendigo is described as this kind of monster, an embodiment of insatiable greed, the drive to take too much, share too little, consume everything.
And she sees parallels today.
She draws a powerful connection between that ancient story and the unsustainable practices that characterize so much of our modern economy, an economy that consumes the earth.
That's pretty heavy, but there are signs of hope, right? She offers examples of moving towards something different.
Absolutely. Amidst all this, there are definitely reasons for hope. Kimmerer shares that really heartwarming story about her neighbor, Polly.
The one with the serviceberries?
Yeah. Polly had this abundant crop, could have potentially sold them, made a profit. But instead, she invited everyone in the community to come and pick them for free.
Just gave them away.
Just gave them away. A clear act of generosity, prioritizing community connection over profit.
And Polly herself understood that, right? That it wasn't just giving away free stuff.
Exactly. She knew that while it was a gift, this act of sharing also fostered goodwill. It strengthened relationships within the community, which, can have real long-term benefits for her farm and for everyone involved.
It speaks to those deeper human needs, maybe. Belonging, connection, purpose, beauty. Things the market can't really commodify.
That's a great way to put it. Things a purely transactional economy often fails to provide.
And we do see glimmers of this shift elsewhere, don't we? Intentional communities, local food movements.
Yes. The growth of local food economies that prioritize those relationships between growers and eaters, urban gardening initiatives, they're all steps towards a more reciprocal way of living, building those connections.
Kimmerer also briefly mentions some bigger economic models, donut economics.
Donut economics, the circular economy, these are frameworks trying to align our economic activities with ecological limits, planetary boundaries, and also social well-being and justice, moving away from just endless growth.
She uses this analogy, ecological succession. How does that fit?
It's a compelling idea. Like how in nature, after a disturbance, new plants and communities fill the gaps and change the environment. She suggests that new regenerative forms of economy can emerge by finding and filling the gaps left by the dominant extractive market system.
So change doesn't have to be tearing everything down, maybe. It can be growing something new in the spaces available.
Right. And she emphasizes the power of joy and a sense of justice as motivators for this change. Contrasting them with the purely extractive mindset, she kind of nicknames Darren.
Darren.
Okay. And the concluding story she shares about the Eagle Scout.
Oh, yeah, the one who built new free farm stands.
Exactly, after the first one was stolen. It's such a concrete, inspiring example of someone actively choosing to disrupt that purely market model, choosing instead to foster sharing and community connection, saying, no, we're going to keep doing this.
That's powerful. It's like refusing to let the tragedy of the commons logic win.
It really is. And then on a more personal, profound level, Kimmerer shares that story about her father.
His morning coffee ritual.
Yeah, offering his coffee grounds each morning to, as he called them, the gods of Tahawus, which is Mount Marcy in the Adirondacks.
She said initially she saw it as kind of secondhand.
Right, maybe just a habit he picked up. But later, she came to understand it as this deeply personal expression of gratitude, of connection to the land he loved, a daily ceremony.
So what started as just, a practical way to get rid of coffee grounds
evolved into this meaningful symbol of respect, of joy, a way of saying thank you to the earth every single day, nurturing that sense of belonging.
And she connects that very personal act back to the bigger idea of gift economies.
Beautifully. She sees it all as part of the same impulse, living more consciously, more gratefully, finding ways big and small to participate in that cycle of giving and receiving.
So as we kind of wrap up this deep dive, we come back to that central tension we've been exploring.
This contrast between the dominant market economy, often built on scarcity and transaction.
Yours is the potential of these gift economies, rooted in abundance, relationship, and reciprocity.
All illuminated through the simple yet profound example of the Serviceberry.
And it really leaves you pondering this question, doesn't it? If the natural world itself in so many ways operates on these principles of sharing, interdependence, mutual flourishing,
how can we reimagine our own human systems, our economies, our communities, to better align with those fundamental truths for a future that's, well, more sustainable and more just for everyone?
It feels like a huge question.
It is, but maybe the answer starts small. We'd encourage you, listening, to maybe just consider the small ways you might already be part of gift economies.
Or how you could cultivate more of that spirit, that giving and receiving.
Yeah, in your own life, in your community. Because as Kimmerer reminds us so eloquently, all flourishing is mutual. Our well-being is tied together.
It really is an invitation, then, to become a more conscious part of this gift economy, maybe? For the benefit of people, sure, but also the planet.
Recognizing that inherent abundance that actually does surround us and our own capacity, our shared capacity for giving back.
A powerful thought to end on. Thinking about abundance, not just scarcity.